Wondering if debt consolidation or bankruptcy is better for getting out of debt? Well, in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how debt consolidation and bankruptcy work, show you the real costs and timelines for both options, and help you figure out which one makes sense for your specific situation. Hi, I'm Mike Ziegler. For more than 13 years, my law firm has helped consumers in serious trouble with debt by defending collection lawsuits and assisting with Chapter 7 and Chapter 13 bankruptcy. So I've seen how these options play out in real life. First, let me explain what debt consolidation and bankruptcy actually are so you understand the difference. Debt consolidation is when a private company negotiates with their creditors to accept less than what you owe. So for example, if you owe $30,000, they might try to get creditors to accept $18,000 and call it even. Debt consolidation companies typically tell you to stop paying your bills while they negotiate, and you pay the consolidation company a percent of your debt as their fee. Bankruptcy is a legal process through the federal court system. Chapter 7 eliminates most of your unsecured debt completely in about 4 months from when you file. Chapter 13 creates a court-approved payment plan where you pay back some of your debt over 3 to 5 years, and then typically the rest gets eliminated. Here's the key difference you need to understand. Debt consolidation is a private negotiation with no legal protection. The company can't stop lawsuits, wage garnishment, or collection calls. They can only ask creditors to accept less money. Bankruptcy is a federal legal process with immediate court protection. The moment you file, all collection activity stops by federal law. Think of debt consolidation like asking a bully to be nicer to you, where bankruptcy is like having a federal judge tell the bully to leave you alone. Now that you understand what each option does, let me show you the biggest problem most people don't know about debt settlement. What is the hidden problem? Here's an example. Let's say someone owes $30,000 in credit card debt and gets into debt consolidation. They stop paying their creditors while the company negotiates, but 8 months later, they get served with a lawsuit for the full amount. Now they've paid the settlement company $6,400 and are in a worse position than when they started. This is what most people don't realize about debt consolidation. By stopping payments while the company negotiates, you're actually giving creditors the perfect excuse to sue you. And once you're sued, debt settlement becomes nearly worthless because the creditor doesn't need to negotiate anymore. They can garnish you once they have a judgment. Here's what you need to understand about the real risk of lawsuits and debt consolidation programs. Most debt consolidation companies will downplay the lawsuit risk, but here's the reality. If you owe more than $10,000 to a creditor, especially major credit card companies like Chase, Capital One, or Discover, your lawsuit risk is significant. Here's how to evaluate that risk. First, look at who you owe money to. Some creditors sue at 90 days past due. Second, consider your assets. If you own a home or have a steady job, you're a more attractive lawsuit target. Third, understand that once you're sued, the entire debt settlement process collapses. As someone who's defended hundreds of these lawsuits, I know exactly which creditors are aggressive and which aren't. The debt consolidation company won't tell you this because they're not lawyers. They've never defended a collection lawsuit. Now let me show you how bankruptcy actually protects you from lawsuits in a way that debt settlement never can. How does this protection work? We've worked with many clients getting their wages garnished at 25% of their gross paycheck, which for most people is around 40% of their take-home pay. We quickly filed their bankruptcy and the garnishment stopped immediately because of the automatic stay. In Chapter 7, within about 4 months, all debt was discharged. It's the difference between hoping your creditors will be reasonable versus having federal law force them to stop immediately. The moment you file bankruptcy, the automatic stay goes into effect, a federal court order that stops all collection calls, all lawsuits, all wage garnishments instantly. Here's exactly how bankruptcy protection works and why it's so powerful. When you file bankruptcy, it creates an automatic stay. This is federal law, not a request, not a negotiation. Every creditor must stop all collection activity immediately. If they violate this, they face federal sanctions and may have to pay you damages. Here's what stops instantly: all phone calls, all letters, all lawsuits, all wage garnishments, all bank account freezes. If you're being sued, the lawsuit gets frozen. If they're already garnishing your wages, that garnishment stops. Compare this to debt consolidation. You're still subject to collection for months or years while the company negotiates. You might get sued during that process. And if you do get a settlement, you're not getting a huge markdown after the debt consolidation companies speak. The automatic stay is immediate free protection that's only in the bankruptcy process. Now let me show you something that settlement companies definitely don't want you to know about the real costs. Let's walk through the math. Here's the math that debt consolidation companies hope you never figure out. Most charge 20 to 25% of your total enrolled debt and fees. Then you still have to pay usually 60 to 80% of your debt to creditors if everything goes perfectly. So for example, let's say someone owes $60,000 in credit card debt. Consolidation companies usually charge around 20 to 25% of the enrolled debt, so nearly $15,000 just in fees. So even if they get an average reduction of 50%, you'd still be paying $45,000 of the $60,000. Compare that to bankruptcy. For most Chapter 7 filers, that $45,000 is more than 10 times the out-of-pocket to file a case. That's often tens of thousands of dollars in savings for someone with serious debt problems. Here's how to calculate the real cost for your situation. For debt consolidation, take your total debt and multiply it by 25%. That's what goes to the company in fees. Then add 50 to 80% of your total debt for what you'll actually pay creditors if everything goes perfectly. Many people end up paying more, but it varies on a case-by-case basis. For bankruptcy in a Chapter 7, you're typically looking at attorney fees that are a one-time cost. All qualifying debts get eliminated, and in a no-asset case, 0% gets paid to creditors. For higher income earners, the bankruptcy option is Chapter 13. In some respects, Chapter 13 is similar to debt consolidation, where you make one monthly payment to cover your debts. But Chapter 13 has some added superpowers. Your payment is based on what you can afford, your disposable income over 3 to 5 years. It allows you to get caught up on secured debts as well as your unsecureds, and you get full legal protection with the automatic stay and a guaranteed end date. When you see the real numbers, the choice becomes pretty clear for most people with serious debt problems. But here's the part that will really surprise you about timing in your credit score. What's the truth about credit impact? Here's an example. Imagine two people with identical debt problems. One goes into debt settlement, the other files bankruptcy. 2 years later, the person who filed bankruptcy has a 720 credit score and just bought a house. The person who did debt settlement is still dealing with collection calls and has a credit score in the 500s. Debt settlement companies love to claim that they're easier on your credit than bankruptcy. This is misleading at best. Here's what actually happens. In debt settlement, your credit gets destroyed while you're in the program, not paying your bills, and stays damaged for years after the settlements show up on your credit report. That's 5 to 7 years of credit damage total. With bankruptcy, yes, it stays on your credit report for 10 years. But here's what they don't tell you. You can start rebuilding immediately because all of your debt is gone, and your debt-to-income ratio becomes perfect. Here's the credit timeline reality for both options. Debt settlement timeline 2 to 4 years of average credit damage while not paying bills in the program, plus 3 to 4 additional years for settlements to age off your credit report. Total is about 7.5 years of impact. Bankruptcy timeline, you get an immediate discharge of the debts and you can start rebuilding right away. Most people see 700 plus credit scores within about 24 months. Mortgage eligible in as little as 2 years with good payment history. Key difference, bankruptcy gives you a clean slate to rebuild from. Debt settlement leaves you wounded and fighting for years. Now let me tell you how to know which option is actually right for your situation. How do you make this decision? Here's an example. Let's say someone's torn between debt consolidation and bankruptcy because they're worried about stigma. After learning the facts, they realize that bankruptcy offers immediate protection, lowers costs, and faster recovery. 6 months later, they're debt-free and rebuilding their credit instead of still fighting with creditors. Here's the reality. If you're researching debt consolidation versus bankruptcy, you're already in crisis mode. The question isn't whether you need help, it's which option actually solves the problem instead of prolongs it. Debt consolidation only makes sense in very specific situations. You have a lump sum available to settle immediately, you're dealing with smaller debts under $10,000, or you're working with creditors who historically don't sue. For everyone else dealing with serious debt problems, bankruptcy provides immediate protection, lower costs, and a faster path to financial recovery. Here's exactly how to evaluate your situation. Ask yourself these questions. First, are you currently being sued or likely likely to be sued? If yes, bankruptcy provides immediate protection that debt settlement can't match. Second, can you realistically pay off your debt in 3 to 5 years without help? If no, Chapter 7 might eliminate everything immediately. Third, do you have steady income but just too much debt? Chapter 13 might give you a manageable payment plan with full legal protection. Fourth, are you judgment-proof with no assets and no steady income? You might not need either option right now. The key is getting honest legal advice from someone who actually defends lawsuits and files bankruptcy, not a salesperson trying to get you into a program. The bottom line is this: if you're dealing with serious debt problems, collection calls, potential lawsuits, you don't have time to guess. Making the wrong choice can cost you years and tens of thousands of dollars. If you're in Florida and need to speak with an attorney who actually handles both sides of this, defending debt collection lawsuits and filing bankruptcies, give us a call at 727-538-4188. We'll give you an honest assessment of your situation and help you make the right choice for your specific circumstances. And if you're thinking about filing for bankruptcy, watch this video next so that you can see what to expect and how to make sure you're doing it correctly and avoid messing up your case.